it was indicated that without the acquisition of Spirit Aerosystems, the new generation of any aircraft developed by Boeing would not involve work in Wichita or work in Kansas. You're going to build a new aircraft one of these days, and what's the plan for where that work will take place?
The future of aviation in Wichita addressed during a hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday. Senator Jerry Moran questioned Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg during a Senate hearing. Ortberg's testimony comes after Boeing pled guilty in a criminal fraud case tied to 2 deadly crashes involving the 737 MAX. Now, Boeing is set to acquire Wichita's Spirit Aerosystems, and Ortberg says there are no plans to move work out of Wichita.
Let me just assure you that Spirit Aerosystems and the work we do in Kansas is critically important. The work that we're doing there is going to stay there. In fact, I'm very hopeful that once we get the acquisition closed, we'll find opportunities to do actually even more work.
Now, Boeing's acquisition of Spirit expected to be final this year. Meanwhile, Boeing in discussions with the Justice Department to reach a revised plea in a criminal fraud case. If no final agreement is reached, a judge has set a trial date in June.